And hello there, Dental Nacho Nation. Terry Brock here, and welcome to another time of Tech Tips with Terry, Tuesday at 2. It's now 2 o'clock here on the Eastern Coast, and we are glad you're joining us. And today, I am so excited because what we're talking about is something that is vital to every office that you've got and most everything we're doing today, security and cybersecurity particularly. It's one of those things that often we don't know what we don't know, and that can be really bad. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk to two individuals that are helping us a lot right now, helping many of us at Dental Nachos, and we wanted to share them with you. They're joining me right now as we take a look at what's going on. I'm going to talk with them. We're bringing them in right now. We've got with us Chris Jordan, who's the CEO of Fluency Security, and Al Wissinger, who is now the Managing Director of Strategic Solutions. Gentlemen, welcome aboard. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Terry. It's our privilege to be here.
Great. Well, it's good to have both of you here because what you have been doing is helping dental offices and many others, particularly, being able to look at what's going on and a lot of the things they don't know what they don't know. I'm not a security specialist, but I respect the daylights out of what you are doing and how you're doing it. Chris, as CEO, you work with companies, you're looking at it from a big picture point of view. Without getting into all the details right now, we want to do that a little bit later. What do you see are the important issues with cybersecurity right now, particularly that dental community members need to know about?
Well, I think the biggest one, because of COVID, is a quicker move to at-home workers and remote equipment, right? BYOD, bring your own devices. And so that issue really is impacting the entire community, both at the enterprise level and at the small business.
Yeah, it seems like that's going to be really important because right now we've got that security and those kind of things that are there. And Al, I want to make sure we get you in here because you deal with a lot of the nitty gritty things. You're right there. You're the kind of guy we want to have hanging around when things are going bad or before they go bad. Tell us, what are some of the things that you see, Al, that happen? Some of the problems that happen with security, particularly in today's environment, mixed in there with COVID.
Well, listen, I think the first thing that people need to realize is that the weakest link in all of cybersecurity is the human element. And all too often, the adversaries are very, very creative with their phishing techniques, right? They can send you something that looks so real or spoof it so that it looks so real that you can't imagine that it's not, and you're going to click on it. And the next thing you know, you've opened up a can of worms. And that really starts the downhill slide for a lot of businesses. And it doesn't matter, small to enterprise. It just takes one person to do something like that to really cause major issues.
Yeah, I think that's a danger sign. And as a dentist listening to this, think about this. If you're thinking, oh, we're pretty secure, everything's fine, all it would take would be one mistake. And it doesn't have to be something that someone's plotting to hurt you. It's just they make an error and they can do that. So as we look at that, Chris, what are some of the issues that you see coming up with companies, not only with dentists, but with others that you're dealing with that seem to be more frequent right now?
Well, the biggest change is we bring up ransomware a lot. Right.
Yeah.
So the biggest change
And tell
is
us what
endpoint
ransomware
security.
is for someone who might not know.
So ransomware is when you get a piece of malware, right, a malicious program, and it gets on your machine and it encrypts it. And when it boots, it only encrypts files. It doesn't encrypt your operating system and stuff. It encrypts data files like your documents and your backups. And then it asks for payment, right? And that's one reason why Bitcoin is very powerful, because they ask for Bitcoin so they can't be traced. So the issue is that this has become a dominant way of making money for the aggressor, for the attacker.
Yeah. And it seems kind of silly because when you think about it, Bitcoin can be traced. I mean, with chain analysis that you guys probably know a whole lot more about than I do, we know that when you do a Bitcoin transaction, it's visible. I mean, that's how they found out about many different things out there. And so people that are, I think, again, misinformed about security can be really dangerous on there.
Now,
Right.
Terry, I'd like to jump in and
Please.
add to that. And one of the things that's starting to happen now is not only are they encrypting your files, but they're taking your files and downloading them, and then they're going through, and if there's patient information there, they're going to start asking the patients for Bitcoin payment as well as the dental practice, right? And now it's a double hostage kind of scenario where, listen, you thought you were protecting your patients, but in reality, you weren't. And it's really, really important that you understand that what you don't know, like you said up front, can really hurt you
Yeah,
and your
well,
patient.
absolutely. Thanks for mentioning that because that's really important here. The dentists could think they're doing everything right, but then, the patients are now being exposed, and that's really scary. Chris, what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that happening a lot as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a misnomer to think ransomware is just infecting and wanting money from you. Let's understand that it is a piece of code that's running outside of your control. And so all the old things they used to do, they still do it. They still try to move laterally in your organization, which means move from machine to machine, try to infect other machines and encrypt them. They're stealing. They're going to go after your emails. They're going after your billing records. They're going to perform fraud. They're going to be stealing your identity and selling it. So it's almost like chopping up a cow, right? You go there and there's flank steak and all, filet mignon. They're doing the same thing. They look at you like a cow and they're going to chop you up and sell all the pieces. Ransomware is only one piece, right? So it is a very scary thing that ransomware is one we talk about, and it's easy to explain the impact. But to tell you the truth, all the old impacts, which are almost just as bad, right, are still there. And so the issue we have in our industry is this misnomer that, well, if they encrypt my drive, I've got a backup, I'm fine. That's
Hmm.
just one part of the overall impact. So it's a very complicated topic. There's issues with paying ransomware. Al can go into that. So it's a snowball effect. And what we have today to defend from ransomware has changed significantly. But what we find in the industry is that most people are still using home antivirus. So stuff that was good 20 years ago, it's not good today. And
Mm.
that's what most people have on their boxes. In fact, it's really hard when you have 3 different versions of Cylance to convince a dentist that the top one's the one you want, right? Because you have to understand you're in a business, security is not your business. So people tend to pick the cheapest one because they can't see a difference. It's not like it's a different color. It doesn't smell different, right? It all has the same brand. Why is one different from the other? And so people tend to buy the cheapest possible. And in doing so, they're positioning themselves for a really, really bad fall.
Whoa, okay. Well, now you got us trembling. You got us scared, but that's as it should be. We need to be maybe not scared, but at least vividly aware of what's going on. Let's suppose, because I always thought, or at least I heard a few years ago, I don't even remember how many now, ransomware, a lot of it was really bogus. And probably a lot was bogus. But I would imagine you, in your work, you realize, Terry, it is not all bogus. Some of it is real. Al, what do we do if we've got a real ransomware? First of all, how would we know that? And then what steps can we take if there is real ransomware going on?
Yeah, Terry. So what you're going to end up with is, as Chris said, is they're going to block your files so that you can't access them. So next time you try to go to access them, it's going to say, "Ha ha, you can't do it. You got to pay Bitcoin, and we'll get you the code back." And by the way, that doesn't always work, right? You don't always get everything back necessarily. But the new twist here that Chris just mentioned is that back in late 2020, the U.S. Department of Treasury and their Office of Foreign Asset Control has said that making ransomware payments, which a lot of companies do nowadays, and in fact, there's companies out there that offer to help negotiate those ransomware payments for you, that it could be, in fact, illegal because you are indirectly or directly, without knowing it, right? Without knowing what's going on, supporting terrorist organizations around the
Whoa.
world. So you get you get ransomware. You've got to let the FBI know, and you've got to let the U.S. Treasury Department know this stuff, because you could, in fact, be held liable for making ransomware payment to try to rescue your business,
Mm.
and that's a problem.
Oh, yeah, that's an understatement. That's a problem. What do we do? We either lose all of our business and everything's there, or if we say, okay, I'll give you whatever they're asking for, then we're in danger of violating the law. Okay, so, well, Chris, what do we do in that case?
Well, so what the government's not saying is you can pay them, you can go down that route, and this is a really hard thing to swallow, because if it's not impacting you, people will say don't pay it, don't pay it. I mean, that's the first thing you hear.
That's the first
But
thing
the
I've heard a
reality
lot.
is,
They say don't pay it, and some of it is bogus, but some of it is not.
yeah. So they tell you not to pay it, but you have to understand it's your business. right? It's like saying close your doors for the betterment of everybody else. Listen, it's for everybody else, but not you.
Hmm.
If you want to eat, you might need to be paying that money. So you need to look at it from a risk in a business kind of way. And this is the difference between the high, what do you want to call it? The high ground that people take versus the reality that you're in a business, and this is about risk mitigation. And the risk is, do I need this or do I not need this data? Right? You still have to also move forward. Remember now, it's not just ransomware, there's more damage occurring. So most companies will get an incident response team. And so that's kind of at that next level. A lot of what they call EDR, endpoint detection and response. So I said home virus, endpoint protection, endpoint detection and response. Most EDR is packaged with some type of response package because when there is an issue, it's listen, it's not your expertise, right? You wouldn't have known about this law if it wasn't for this conversation. It's not your expertise, and you deal with it hopefully once in a lifetime. We deal with it once a week or once a month.
Yeah.
So we have to know, we have to do it again and again and again. I don't want to say I'm a dentist. Those people are damn smart, but we are professionals, and you know what? I've got pliers. I'm not going to yank out my own tooth, right? I'm going to
Precisely.
visit you guys, right? And it's the same
Exactly.
thing when you have ransomware. This is not something to mess around with. I guess that's kind of what I want to say is that this is where you call some experts, you fumigate it, you clean it up, and then you have to do an action on report saying what went wrong and how do we not do that again.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Well, then let's take it there to the next step. Someone says, okay, first of all, if it did happen, what kind of procedures are possible? I realize you come in and you to really understand what's going on. You can ask the right questions that I wouldn't know. I know maybe that much about security. I know it's really important on a 1 to 100 scale. You're at 100. I'm maybe at a 2, 3 if the wind's blowing just right. So I would go to you for help on that, much like I would go to my dentist because I can floss, I can brush my teeth, and that's the end of my dental knowledge right there. But I've got dentists that can do it. So what kind of things could we do to put that in place? Al, what kind of procedures could we put in place to start making sure we're less likely to have a problem with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Terry. And listen, I liken this to the fact that recently I went in for my biannual dental cleaning. And when they go in and clean your teeth, that's a preventative measure. But it's also an inspection, right, to make sure that there's nothing else going on. So when you look at cybersecurity, yeah, you can have your IT guy or gal right down the street come in and they're going to sell you things and that's their livelihood and you don't want to hurt them. But at the end of the day, you've got to have this ability to put together this specialty, this comprehensive package of approaches, right, that take this preventative technique, right, and brings that forward. So, for example, yeah, you're going to, if you have the enterprise grade EDR that Chris talked about, that endpoint detection, which is multiple levels above the normal antivirus you can buy at stores, right? And then you start adding in things like compliance requirements where you've got to start reading your audit data on a regular basis, right? I can tell you right now, if there's any dental practices taking credit cards, they have to comply. It's a voluntary compliance with something called the PCI DSS. And it's critical, that in there they state of the 12 sections, section 10 says you're logging and recording and analyzing your audit data. And it's not only about that, it's also now about taking all of that intelligence that you can bring in about your environment and then reacting and responding to it. So you go from this whole preventative capability to actually seeing what's going on dynamically in real time and then being able to respond to it. And I can guarantee you, I don't know very many dentists out there that have this specialty of cybersecurity, to your point, Terry, where they can just walk in and say, okay, yeah, I've got a guy who's come in, he's done pen testing, or someone's tried to breach me and they can't do it because, oh gosh, the firewall's been set up correctly. I will guarantee you that the weakest link, as I've said earlier, is the human element. And all it takes is one person to hit a phishing attachment, and there you go. All the other testing that you've done on your perimeter doesn't matter because now it's happening from the inside out.
Okay, well, you've made your case very strongly and very well, both of you. Got a question. Let's suppose, well, let's use a metaphor. Suppose I had not seen a dentist for 20, 30 years, and there are people like that. Got some problems, this is hurting, etc. Thing to do would not be to say, doctor, it's this tooth right here that's hurting. That's it. No, 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 no. It's like if you haven't seen a dentist in 30 years, you're not a dentist. Good idea. They're going to take some pictures. They're going to look it over. They're going to look at everything and say, well, okay, we're going to fix this tooth, but we got this one and that one and whatever things they do. So with that being our metaphor, what would be some practical steps that someone could take to say, okay, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we don't know. For them to come into your offices, so to speak, I'll put that in quotes, and have you do the oral exam, the check them out, everything like that. Chris, what would be some first steps that they could take?
Well, I think that's a good mental exercise to go through, Terry. So think about it. If you're seeing somebody for the first time, you see a mess, right? You've seen it before if you're the professional. And in your head, you start creating a plan, right? You say, this is where I want this patient to be in the long run, that you want them to be healthy, still have as many teeth as possible, you name it. And then you're going to start saying, what do I do immediately to start resolving issues, right? What movements do I have? What can I do now that will have the greatest impact to get to where we want to be? Right. And that's exactly what a professional is going to do. They're going to come in, they're going to say, yep, what do I need to do to save this place? And so one of the first things we do is kind of take an inventory, not an assessment to attack you, an inventory of where your data is.
So well, like a good example is of where your data is. Got it.
Right. Makes you think sense. About it. Like if you go into a dentist office, is all your data in the dentist office? If you're running Office 365, no, it's also in the cloud. Right. So start thinking about where all your data is. And can you control it? Is it protected? We recently, actually, Al found one of our customers was sharing a file called what, Al? Usernames and passwords.
Oh, username and password. Oh, how nice.
Share to the world.
That's right up there with having your password called Spot. SPOT, your dog's name on everything that you have. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Not a good thing to do for those of you listening. That is not good.
No. But my point is that you first of all look at running your business, not securing it. You say, this is what I need to run my business. This is where my data is. You remove risk by removing your data from places you don't care about, right? And then you start circling the wagons. And in our industry, you circle the wagons. Everybody starts with a firewall. That's true. But we also want to say, this is where all my data is. I want to collect it all so I can start seeing what's happening. And that's where that endpoint detection and response comes in, EDR. The biggest issue we have with EDR, we really do push it hard on our customers. We don't sell EDR, right? We sell management, right, of the solution. But when we go in there with EDR, we like it better because it gives us better vision, better control, better asset insight, and allows a customer to really see what's going on. So they're part of the solution, right? We're not making choices and decisions without a customer saying, yeah, I like that. Just like you wouldn't go to a patient and start telling them what to do. You're going to give them options. You're going to say, this is what I recommend. And we do the same thing. We go in there, we take a look at where their data is, we collect all the data, we say, man, these are the problems, and we give them recommendations on how to move forward. We're an operational company, so we're more interested on the day-by-day operations, not getting you fixed and walking away. This is not how high you can jump once. This is how high are you going to be, right? And that's the key in our industry, is that you were talking about the weakest link. It's really, a lot of times we do assessments, it's a snapshot. Unfortunately, the attack can occur anytime. And so we need to create a perimeter that's constantly being viewed, constantly understood, and then we're responding to the issues we see. But again, we can't respond if we can't see. It goes back to collection, knowing where your information is, knowing where your assets are, and being able to come up with a perimeter and a plan to protect it. And that's the big one, is a plan, right? You spot on the very beginning that every customer we have has a plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to put that plan together. And once you have that in place, then you need someone that can manage it. And that's where you folks come in. You're going to be able to do that with Fluency Security. You're going to be able to look at what's going on. So, Al, if someone is looking at that and they're thinking, okay, we need to get that analysis, what would be some of the key points that they'd want to get ready for if you and your team are going to come over and help them out? What kind of checklist would you ask them to do before you'd get there?
It really is fairly easy, Terry, but in some cases it's not, because you're so dispersed on the different type of help you're bringing in, right? You might have an IT guy down here, you might have somebody within the office here who does this, but the number one thing is understand how are you connected to the internet, and as Chris said, where's your data, and then you've got to have somebody who has administrative rights to access the visibility about setting up user IDs, as an example with Office 365 or G Suites, right? You have to have somebody who, if you have a firewall, who can access the firewall. And it's about being able to access those. And the real easy part then is once you have that inventory of what things you have in place today, and then it's a matter of we work with you in less than an hour. If we have the right people on with us, we'll have all of your data coming in to our system. And that's when we're going to start, if you will. I noticed that some dentists now have a practice of taking your blood pressure when you come into the office, right? So you got to understand what's going on inside. And that's where, by collecting all of this data and bringing it together and then analyzing it in context and relationship to each other, right, that you can really get the deeper insights as to, are you healthy? Are you not? Are you exposed?
Yes.
Are you having problems?
And
Things like that.
Yeah,
Terry,
very important.
we did data. We really mean what we call metadata or audit data. We're not actually collecting the actual data, right? So when you download a file, we see a file's been downloaded. This is a name, date, and time. This is who did it. This is what machine it went to, right? That's the data we collect. And by going in this 1 hour, what we call an onboarding, we wind up collecting all your metadata. And then that turn, when we take a look at it, we might say, you know what? We're missing this type of data. Where is it? And half the time the customer says, well, we don't have that type of data. I say, okay, that's the first issue right there, right? It's not the firewall. Half the time it's the ignorance of not being able to see everything on your network or on your systems. And that's a bigger problem than I have the right firewall.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it sounds like sitting down with the two of you, your team, and putting systems in place really is going to take care of the issue. But more than anything, for dentists watching this, it's going to give you that peace of mind that you know, okay, we're taken care of. You don't have to worry about that. You can focus on building your practice, taking care of the patients, which is why you went to dental school. You went there, you're studying that, and bring in the professionals that can say, okay, we're going to fix any problem. We're going to, first of all, just kind of do a checkup. We're going to do a full oral exam, to be a good metaphor. Check everything out, and then we'll go from there, put you on a plan that's going to be good for you, customized to you, and keep an eye on it so that if in the future, say 6 months from now, a year from now, some hacker tries to do something nefarious on your system, they're going to catch it. It'll bounce off it like a rubber ball off a steel wall, and you'll be able to take care of that. Well, we want to find out how to get in touch with you guys because you've got some really good people. You've got a good team there at Fluency Security. What's the best way to do that? Chris, what would be the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Well, if they go to our website, fluencysecurity.com, there's a little form on the bottom they can fill it in. Al.wissinger@fluencysecurity.com. We'll go right to Al. Contact@fluencysecurity.com. That email address actually goes to pretty much everybody in the company. We also have an internal Slack for our customers to communicate. We're a very talkative company, so we're pretty good about that. You know, one of the things, Terry, just to pick pilot at the very end, because we talked about plans and everything like that, then to put in perspective of a business is that this is not deterring your business from being better, right? That if you had an accountant, or never had an accountant, I should say, and all of a sudden you get somebody to do your books for you, think about what that did for your company to grow it, right? It's the same thing with good security. It takes a lot of the processes that are a mess, that are actually detracting from you to do business, and it makes it easier so you can focus on your company and grow it. But it doesn't take you away from being responsible from security. It just gives you the help to organize it and generate the best practices.
Yeah, it's like what you're doing there is you're making sure that what you're doing is going to be set and you're going to be in good shape on that and make sure that things are in the right place. Well, before we let you go, Al, any final words or observation that you want? You got such a wealth of knowledge. I wish we had like 10 hours for this and working with you guys. It's really been helpful today. Al, what would you say to this person that's saying, okay, you got my attention here?
So a couple things real quick, Terry. One is that we have a lot of experience with a lot of different programs and applications and things, and we freely give that advice out to potential clients and our clients, saying this is how we see these interacting to give you the best of breed kind of approach, right? No, that's number one. Number two, as we come in and work with dental practices, we're not there to take the relationships that they have with their IT people, right? Or other people that they may be working with from a security perspective. We're there to augment, and we're there to really help get to the internals and understand what's happening and bring the bigger picture back together versus just, hey, I can't get to the firewall, or, I don't want to run this application, et cetera. So the third point I want to make is, in addition to those two items, we work with clients and we'll give you especially the dental nachos relationship. We're offering a 30-day no-cost trial. So if you can truly invest about an hour up front with us, we're willing to come to the table and give you that 30-day assessment. And I promise you, in every case that we've ever brought a client in on a proof of concept, we always find something that they were not aware of. And that's where I want to tie it right back to, when you don't know what you don't know, it will hurt you.
Yeah. And fortunately, now that we know, there are solutions for this. Even if we don't know, you've got a solution. And so as you're thinking about that, you in dentisting land out there, this is something that is important right now. Hey, welcome to the 21st century. Didn't have to worry about this in the 1950s, okay? But then I prefer dentistry today to what we had in the 50s. As good as it was for that time there, it's much better. Things keep progressing. So gentlemen, we want to make sure that people get in touch with you. FluencySecurity.com is the key. Go to that website. You'll see what they've got. Get in touch with them. And gentlemen, we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Gary, it's our pleasure. Thank you.
And for those of you that are watching, think about this. This is an opportunity for you to say, okay, we're going to make sure that we don't get one of those, oh, whoops, or maybe another more colorful expression of situation happening. But rather, it's going to be something that we say, okay, we took the steps necessary. We know we're safe now. And you can hear about it in the news that, oh boy, big, nasty thing happened. You know that you've got a team working with you with Fluency Security. Well, I'm Terry Brock for Dental Nachos. We appreciate you joining us today and look forward to hearing from you. Please leave comments below because we'll be checking these and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks for joining us today. We wish you the best.